Okay. Hi, everyone. This is the SIG cluster lifecycle call of 22nd August. And yeah, we're currently filling out the agenda and attending list. And we have a couple of items to discuss. Currently, code freeze is coming up soon in next Thursday, I think. So have to discuss that a bit and test signals and some new features that we want to merge in. Yeah, so Jace, could you please take the first one? That was yours. Now that we're recording.
What? I'm sorry.
So the alpha release thing.
Oh, yeah. So we're planning the alpha release for tomorrow, and we're looking for a green test signal on that in the release master blocking tests. You can go to testgrid.k8s.io to see those lists of flaky tests if you click on summary for release master blocking. And if we can get all green test signal, then we can get a usable alpha, which I think it would be great for all the consumers of cluster lifecycle to work against. So yeah, if you have any tests there, if you're in SIGs that have tests that are flagged as failing, please do what you can to rectify those as soon as possible, so we can cut a good release tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Yes, so I think the first thing we have to look into is that, the first thing we have to fix is that kubeadm tests are red right now, unfortunately, because there's a regression in the kubelet on 1.8 branch that we should be aware of. I'm pasting the link here. There we go, and in the chat as well. So basically, kubelet isn't creating its own directory if it doesn't exist at master. I don't know when this regression happened, but sometime in the 1.8 dev cycle. So we need to get that in before kubeadm test will go green, because right now kubelet is sitting there and does nothing, just crash loops. Currently reading the thread here, and it seems like it got approved 6 minutes ago. So I hope it can get LGTM'd as well and eventually merged in time for tomorrow. The submit queue has been a little bit flaky. The latest, the past 3-4 days. So we'll see what we can do. I don't know, Jace, do you mean that we should like bump priority or something like on the PRs that need to get in for tomorrow, or what?
It's really just green test signals. So if it comes down to if it's causing the failure in the test itself, that's really the only thing to prioritize. I mean, really, I think cluster lifecycle should be a huge consumer of the alpha. So if there's things that you'd like to see for your own needs and testing in the alpha, then I'd say try and get those PRs in. But really, the main thing is that we need green test signal across all those release master blocking tests.
Yeah, so I mean that kubeadm is now a release blocking master test, and it's currently red because of this kubelet regression.
Yeah. So that one should be prioritized, and I will add myself to watch this so that I can help make that happen in whatever way we need to do.
Yeah, cool. Actually, one thing that merged some days ago to kubeadm is and Jeff Grafton from Google has done great work on this. Basically, now control plane CI images are pushed to GCR, so it's easy to consume for the first time kind of ever. It's easy to consume build from master of the control plane. So that's really awesome. can be done with just kubedem init -- Kubernetes version CI/latest, which is cool. Yeah, we'll watch this PR and hopefully get it merged for tomorrow. Should be.
It needs an LGTM, it looks like, in order to move forward. So
yeah,
in that.
I think, well, it has been LGTM'd. I don't know if that's valid anymore. I'm not sure. Anyway, we can ask Juju.
Okay, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
And yeah, feel free, Diego, to take the next one for me. I'll move this a little bit down.
Okay, doke. So yeah, I got the new rolling update strategy working for the most part. There's one kind of blocker, so I need to reach out, I guess to Janet probably today or someone for a little advice, because there are parts of the daemon set controller code that very much assert that there is one pod per node, right? That's like a fundamental contract of daemon sets. And so I had to kind of disable some of that code in order to actually test the strategy. And so I just want to get her opinion and I guess the community's opinion. So I'll write something up today of how to cleanly relax that constraint for this strategy without, causing regressions otherwise, or just general like changes in behavior that I'm sure people wouldn't appreciate. So that's the status on that. But once we kind of figure out the best way to solve that, then I think we're in good shape, because it works quite nicely. So I should hopefully get a resolution for that today and put a PR up, and it should be hopefully not too stressful from there. It's a pretty clean PR. It's fairly isolated, so hopefully it's low risk and not too contentious.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much for doing this work. Yeah, in any case, I'd be really interested in like seeing the PR and testing it out, even though it has a little bit hacky code for now, just locally, so I can program my own like kubedem upgrade PR accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to get something up today, regardless. Then.
Thanks. Yeah, and Tim isn't here. Anyway, he has started coding the checkpoint proof of concept, and this is like when we're saying checkpointing here, we need to be really clear that it's checkpointing for bootstrapping control planes and nothing else in this first alpha implementation. Eventually, I think like this SIG architecture is looking towards checkpointing more things, and SIG node as well, like in the really long term, but not for this cycle and not for the coming ones either, because it's a really contentious strategy generally for user workloads. But anyway, this is a prerequisite for self-hosting this PR that Tim has. He's currently offline, but he will probably, I think he will be around tomorrow when we have the like burn down or specialized version 1.8 focused meeting for kubedem. And yeah, until that, please review the PR and give him feedback. Also, I can sync with him to add some usage, like how to test this out in a clean manner. And we'd love alpha testers, or like before this even is merged, people that are willing to try out things. So yeah, that's one PSA there. Then we have status updates for kubedem 1.8. I'm currently working on getting the right things in and making sure we have a good 1.8 release. And I filed a couple of issues here, which I'm linking the chat here now as well. And so it's milestone 318. We currently have 27 issues there. Some of them are trivial. Some of them will probably move out, and some of them are like docs and testing, which is not whose deadline is not on Thursday yet.
Hey, Lucas, how do we differentiate things that are 1.8 release blocking for KubeADM versus the full Kubernetes release? Is there a good way to do that?
So we've talked about like earlier to have an issue in Kubernetes, right? For like tracking release blocking things.
Okay, as long as there's some mechanism, and I do watch all of those, but I just want to make sure that we don't accidentally put it in a position where your needs are not being met in the Kubernetes repo. So we definitely need to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to make such an issue, and okay. I mean it's not yet necessary. I mean most of these will be closed just as PRs merge in the submit queue, but yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
So there are a couple of PRs up from me targeting 1.8. The most, or like some noteworthy ones is our dry run functionality, which makes it possible to do kubeadm init dry run and eventually kubeadm upgrade dry run, and something like that. And we have a new config command, subcommand of kubeadm, which basically just views and allows the user to update the like in-cluster configuration for kubeadm, which is used when upgrading. So if we don't have this, kubeadm upgrade wouldn't know like what's the current state of the cluster and don't know how to like upgrade it either. So that's a new thing in 1.8, and before 1.7 users can upgrade, they should create this config map using the kubeadm config command. And then we have currently 2 PRs for upgrades, one with a smaller scope to get it merged faster, and one with the full kubeadm upgrade command and all implementation. I think both of these are in good shape. We just need more reviewers of the code and approvers there. Other than that, Matt, did you have an update on the Bootstrap tokens thing? Anything?
Yeah, I've got a PR open. I'll drop in the notes. Comments welcome. I think it ended up being a pretty straightforward change. The change here is that when bootstrapping nodes authenticate the first time to talk to the certificate signing API, right now in 1.7 they always authenticate as a single group, so there's only one type of bootstrapping node. After this change, the bootstrap token can carry extra group information, which we'll be using for HA hopefully in 1.9. Probably not in 1.8, right?
No.
In 1.9, no. The new bootstrapping master nodes will be able to talk to the current master, to some new API that doesn't exist yet, and authenticate themselves as a new bootstrapping master node. And this is also potentially useful more generically to have different kinds of node pools with different identities.
Yeah, it's generally useful. Beside this the known usage we'll have here with probably AJ in 1.9. But yeah, we have that one. Let's see if I can dig up the other requirements for getting Bootstrap tokens to beta. Here we go. And what's listed there is, yeah, you have one other PR, right? Or, well, we have we have to rename the experimental Bootstrap token auth flag to enable Bootstrap token auth. Could you do that, Matt, as well? I think we talked about it.
Sure. Yeah, I've got most of my week this week for this work. So
Awesome. There we go. And okay, and so the most controversial PR here is the 2-line change, which is 49901. I'll paste that here as well, which basically enables the Bootstrap tokens, the Bootstrap token controllers by default. Do we have any opinions here? There was some discussion on the issue, but no conclusion yet.
I think that'd be a good thing to take up in SIG auth.
When
At their next meeting. I think it's either tomorrow or the Wednesday after.
yeah, it's bi-weekly. I'm gonna be away sometime of next week, so I'm not sure I will be able to attend then. But yeah, I mean,
Looks like it's tomorrow.
cool. At which time?
11. I can chat you the Zoom hangout. I guess, sorry, an hour after now.
Yeah.
An hour after the time this meeting started.
Yeah, cool.
Or 2 hours, sorry.
Sounds good to me. Well, yeah, I mean, it would be nice to have them, but I'm fine with like enabling them when this goes to GA as well, or something like that. Or yeah, I don't know. I mean, this replaces the token as CSV file partially, or fully, but has some other features as well. But the main concern here was that it shouldn't be enabled by default because all clusters may not need it. And I mean, this is hard because all the other authenticators and controllers are enabled like on demand. So if you specify the CSV file, the authenticator is automatically like enabled. But in this case, when we're relying just on the API, and it's an API-driven change, it's harder because we don't have an explicit signal from flags or configuration whether we should enable this or not, unless we have the flag false by default, which we have now. But yeah, Mike, do you have any like specific comments on whether we should do this or not? Like, should we decide? What's this? I mean, I know a couple of people are out today, but what's this SIG's conclusion?
do we know if are there other installers that are using Bootstrap tokens that don't use Kubedium?
So, right, like Kubedium was the first user of it. I know, or I think Chorus Bootkube and Tectonic, how it will use it, right? At least Eric asked about it. Then, well, I don't know. I think the blocker for most users are that it's alpha, right? And don't enable it for that reason. Everyone, were you about to say something?
Oh, I was just I think our midterm plans, at least from Bootkube side, would that distributing the CA isn't that much of a problem for us. It's so like the CSR endpoint we would want to use so that we, that's managed by the kubelet itself, but I'm not sure that we would necessarily use the bootstrap token, at least in the midterm. As long as we can distribute the CSR, this shouldn't necessarily be a problem as long as we can leave the CSR endpoint open to like a pre-shared token or something like that, right?
That's kind of similar to what I'm doing with some internal installers. Basically, the authentication mechanism is still useful. Having a basically a token-based authentication where the backend is a Kubernetes resource and secret. That's good. The kind of HMAC mechanism is not as important anymore. Those two things are separated in the code, right? You can have a bootstrap token that's for authentication and not for I forget what we call the other one. Validation. But it does almost feel like they could be even separated even more.
I'm a little behind too, so I can take a pass at the PRs and see. But yeah, I don't know that we had any immediate plans to adopt it. But also, yeah, the alpha thing is, always the delay.
Yeah. So
the only concern I would have, like from the auth perspective, is it potentially so enabling the controller by default potentially lets it opens an avenue for escalating privileges that you might not have considered as an admin. That creating a secret in this namespace, it has a lot of caveats, because the secret you creates a user, it creates a token that authenticates as with a fixed prefix. So you can't like create a bootstrap token that gets you into arbitrary usernames or groups. But it is like I could see this being something that an admin might not have considered. That enabling this is potentially a breaking change in kind of a far-fetched scenario, but I think it is. I can understand the hesitation to enabling it by default.
yeah, so it is bootstrap tokens as such are basically two different, as Matt mentioned, two different mechanisms, one for validation and one for authentication. And there are two controllers in the controller manager, one for validation and one for authentication, and one authentication module. So it's hard to know whether we should enable it as best practice or like just let everyone opt in. But yeah, we can bring it up to SIG auth as well.
I don't think it's too onerous to say that this is something that like the installer is going to enable if it's using this functionality, just because the bootstrap token functionality, the validation and authentication side of it are pretty intricately linked with the installer. It's not sort of like a generic cluster functionality that other applications in the cluster are necessarily using. It's really, pretty specific to the way new nodes come online and are installed. So having it be something that's not enabled by default, but is enabled in kubeadm and maybe enabled in Bootkube or whatever, I think that doesn't cheapen the functionality, I don't think. We can discuss more in issues.
Yeah, thanks. And let's see what's. So, Jessica, did you want to say something about the doc you sent out for EDU testing Kubernetes upgrades? I think that's relevant here. Okay. Then we have another PR or proposal that might be interesting to the folks here, which is this one about AJ and so Ryan, did you want to say something there, or should we just read the doc?
Is this the API server count fix?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I threw this over the wall to propose a fix for the API server counts, and I got some comments on it, and actually quite a few comments on it, so I'll address those today and probably into tomorrow and update the PR on it. But it seems like it's has a little bit of traction and it's doable.
Yeah,
if there's any questions on it.
So do you have any, can you do a quick recap, like just a minute or so?
Yeah, so the problem statement is if you have multiple master API servers, they sort of, the endpoints within Kubernetes do not eventually reach consensus on the number of endpoints that there are. And there's a hard-coded count on the command line options to the API server. And so the proposal is to dynamically create a config map and put those endpoints into a config map. There's some talks on using CRDs, which according to various people might not fit into the solution. And so I think I'm going to focus on config maps for the short term and see how that goes. And I guess that's about it. Right now, the algorithm for the API server count, if you have less than the number of API servers than the count, then that endpoint never reaches back. It never goes back to normal, and so it's sort of a big problem in an HA sort of sense if you want to have a dynamic number of API servers.
Yeah. So basically, when I wrote the Kubernetes HA proposal, like implementation proposal, it's still work in progress. But anyway, I just proposed to like set API server count to 1,000 or something, 1,000,000, and to mitigate the issue. But I'm really glad we have somebody working on the real fix.
Cool, appreciate it.
Yeah, one question from me is like, will it update the endpoints right after some time, or?
So that loop gets executed every 10 seconds on each API server at the moment. And so the idea is to just continue that that loop every 10 seconds and then have each of those nodes handle its own IP address within that config map. And it should be an improvement to what is currently there.
So like both the Kubernetes service and config map will be kept in sync somehow?
Right. I am not sure yet. There's other dependencies on using the endpoint within Kubernetes, and I'm not sure where else the current endpoints may be used. And so we might have to migrate some components over to using the config map API. But if anyone has any ideas on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so I thought like in the config map there will be the heartbeat of the API server, right? And
right,
like every API server heartbeats there and bumps the value. And
right,
then if like we have 3 API servers up and running and one of them goes down, the 2 other will race to update the endpoints of that, because it says that this master tree has gone down and like the time there has expired, and then they will race to patch the endpoints to like remove this API server. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Like overall, I'll dive into the proposal there.
Okay, and there's comments on there, and I'm working on updating the proposal a little bit with those comments.
Cool. Yeah, really, really exciting. I mean, this is a requirement for AJ of any form, of any kind, like for KubeADM, where you have no idea of like how many API servers am I going to get. So yeah, thanks.
No problem. Thanks.
Do we have any other items here to discuss?
Just a note on the release notes draft. All the PRs that were in flight were merged in. So just submit any edits as new PRs.
Yeah, I'll take a pass on those. What's in currently, and like if there's something that needs to change slightly. I think most of the lines there were discussed and agreed on, and I think it should be mostly fine, but I'll do an extra check. Yeah. I don't think I'm looking through the issues here now. I don't see anything else that we really need to discuss now. If nobody else has anything to bring up. If that's the case, we can get 20 minutes of our day back. It's not the first time SIG Lifecycle has started 20 minutes early, but probably the second. We have both Robert and Joe out today as well. So yeah, and as Jessica mentioned in the chat, please take a look at the KubeADM upgrade test plan. That's exciting to follow. But yeah, otherwise, see you hopefully tomorrow, where we're going to dive in more to like Kubernetes specific things, how we get the 1.8 release stable and the best release ever. And until then, see you next week. Happy Thursday.